Did you all notice Paula didn't say we were having an interesting lesson this morning?
Only because I think Revelations is confusing sometimes.
Well, you're right.
Like Bob Danforth. Remember, he was going to teach our class one time in Revelation. He said, I don't do that. They're singing and all.
Yeah.
What did he say?
You remember Bob Danforth was our teacher one Sunday for Revelation, and he said, I don't do that Revelation. And so we had a sixth-inspiration.
Oh. Well, we got to remember Revelation is a lot of symbolism in it, and we don't understand all that's in Revelation. And in fact, I wrote down something. 1 Corinthians 13:9 says, "For we know in part, and we prophesy in part." So we don't know it all, but we're going to look at it anyways, unless you want to have a sing-spiration. I was just thinking this morning, though, that when we sang, I will sing of my Redeemer, I think that's one of the songs we'll be singing in heaven when we stand before or prostrate before the throne. All right, Revelation. Who is the writer of Revelation? We believe it was Apostle John. What do we know about John? A fisherman, a close friend. He seemed to be about the closest to the apostles, didn't he? He was loved by Jesus, and he loved Jesus. What else do you know about John?
Well, at this point in time, he was exiled.
All right.
Because of proclaiming Christ.
And I think John was getting up there in age. John, I think, from what I've read, is the only apostle that died of natural causes. He wasn't murdered.
Was he the one that baptized Jesus?
No.
That's another John.
That was John the Baptist.
Okay.
John the Baptist. All right, well, let's take a look at Revelation. The one writer said this is the only biblical book that specifically promises a blessing to those who read and keep it in their hearts, but also promises a curse to those who add to it and to take away from it. So I thought about that too, is when we study Revelation, we want to be careful to do the best we can to not add stuff to what our opinions are, and unless we let others know that it is just an opinion. So we must be careful of things like that, or to take away from. And there's a purpose for Revelation, or it wouldn't be in the Bible. So it's important to be here. We've already said John was exiled on the Isle of Patmos for preaching the gospel. It was probably by Nero, I would guess. If we looked at the first chapter of John, it tells us about him being on the Isle of Patmos. And then in verse 10 of chapter 1, John says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet. What would a voice sound like? Sound like a trumpet? I don't know. But it seemed to me it would be a voice that would certainly be heard. When I think of the sound of a trumpet, why, they are readily heard. And but he says it was on the Lord's day, and I was in the Spirit. I think in the Spirit, one writer spoke that it was a time. No, there was no time and no space. He was in the Spirit with temporarily no time or no space. And I think that's what heaven will be like. There won't be any time. There won't be any limitation in space. It'll be a great expanse. Expanse is, we think we know quite a bit about our world, our earth. But I just heard on the news probably several weeks ago that I think there was like 5 more galaxies they've found in the past year that they never knew was there. And so they're getting out further into space, and where this space ends, there's no end to it. It's an expanse and it's very hard to understand or to comprehend. I can't. Everything to me, there's an end or a start, but heaven there will not be. So John was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. In verse 11, it said that this is Jesus speaking in verse 11, saying, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. What thou seest, write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia. Then he goes on to name the 7 churches. And these letters that John wrote to send to the churches were of things that were taking place in their churches and were things that were to come to pass in the future in their churches. And of these 7 churches, 5 of them he had some things against them. 2 of the churches, he had nothing that he spoke of that was against the church. If John was going to write a letter about West Independence today, what do you suppose would be in that letter? You think God would have some things that are things that aren't properly going on here in our church, as he did in the 5 churches that John sent to Asia? Something to think about. Something to think about. In chapters 2 and 3 of Revelation, the contents of the book was sent to the churches. And then, as I said, only 2 of the churches, there was no condemnation given. And 5 of the churches there were. So then we look then at, there's something on this, a lot of powder on here,
I don't know where that came from.
dust. Gritty. Pardon?
Just get your hanky out and dust it.
Well, I don't think I want to get it on my hanky, because then I'll have it on my nose. And I don't want to rub it on my pants. I guess I'll have to come and clean this off.
It's like a.
Yeah. All right. Okay, our lesson's in chapter 4, so we're going to go there now and talk about worship before the throne. In Revelations 4:1, after this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet, talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. So it's first words we have is after this. So it happened after John had sent the letters to the Asian churches. Now, how soon? I don't know. If it was immediately after or if it was some time lapsed in between. But he looked, and an angel had come to him and said, Look, for there's a door open in heaven. And it tells us that John immediately was in the Spirit. And the one writer I read after said that John's body was there in Patmos, but his spirit was in heaven. And so his spirit was separated from his body for this temporary time.
We'll take care of whatever dirt is.
Well, look at that. Look at my Bible.
There is a lot of like sawdust or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I thought maybe it was somebody's makeup. It wasn't mine.
Now it keeps coming out from the bottom.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, I noticed that last Sunday, and I should have done something about it. In fact, I got it on my coat there, don't I? Yeah. So John was immediately in the Spirit here in Revelations 4:1. And the voice he heard was like a trumpet. And the voice said, Come up, and I will show you things that must be hereafter. And at the end of verse 2 it says, and one sat on the throne. This is the throne of God. God is sitting up there in heaven. And as the door was opened to John, he could see. And he could see God sitting on the throne. And then in verse 3 it says, And he that sat was to look upon like jasper and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. What does God look like? We don't know, but it says he looked like as some brilliant colors. God is spirit, and we cannot see him. One day, though, I read in Revelation 20, I got ahead. Revelation 21, it says we will see him.
Well, in other parts of the Bible, it said nobody's seen God and lived. So, except for what Moses, maybe he saw the backside of him or something.
Moses did see the backside of God.
Yeah, but as far as in our human nature, it said no one can look upon God and live because of the brilliance and just no one knows really.
Mm-hmm.
The speculation is just magnificent.
And of the colors it gives, we cannot comprehend it all. And did you know that a rainbow is a full circle? I didn't know that till a few weeks ago. I read it somewhere, and then something came up after that even that said it was a rainbow is a full circle. We can only see the half because of the earth.
Yeah.
But
Any other house, any other part of the world? You know,
well, it was telling about a person in an airplane saw a rainbow, and you could see the full circle up above the clouds. So I thought that was interesting, something I had never known about a rainbow. But a rainbow was mentioned here in our lesson, and that brought that back to mind. And the rainbow was as unto emerald. And then in verse 4 tells us, and round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their head crowns of gold. So around about the throne there's 24 seats and 24 elders sitting on them. Do we know who these 24 elders are?
They have speculation. I think it might be one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and then the 12 disciples.
Okay.
But they're not sure.
No, there's other opinions also, but yeah, that is one of them. Some think it's the patriarchs of the Old Testament. One writer spoke, he thought it was New Testament people, saints. And as David said, the 12 patriarchs plus the 12 apostles. And so we don't know, but there's 24 people sitting on them, sitting on their thrones. And on their heads are crowns of gold. We'll talk about that a little bit later here. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings, voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits. Do we read of anywhere else about lightnings and thunders and
They had reference back to Ezekiel. And some of Ezekiel's, he saw not the same thing here, but kind of close. You know, he was taken in the spirit, I believe, and was shown things of this nature. But Ezekiel talked about wheels, which was just a little confusing. But I just thought about, you know, when I read that in Ezekiel, for them to put that into words was just great for, you know, I mean,
Mhm.
to go out and see that and then have the thought to put it in words. I guess we told them then to put it in words, and then we get to read it now.
Yeah, God had given this vision to Ezekiel and to Isaiah,
Yeah.
and if you go back and read them, scriptures are a little bit different than what this is. But one writer says, well, they might have been seeing it from a different vantage point, and it's possible. It's possible. We don't know we don't understand all of that or know of that, but
It's just a real head scratcher.
but I thought of the lightnings and thunderings. God showed that to Moses on Mount Sinai when he gave the commandments. It says there's a lot of lightning and thunder and clouds that they couldn't see, and so that kind of referred back to Exodus when God gave the 10 Commandments. Then talked about the 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. And there's some difference in thinkings of that. Some think it's the fullness of the Holy Spirit, the 7 spirits. Some think it may be to be the seven angelic spirits before God's throne, the 7 spirits of God. So there are some different thoughts and opinions on that. And then in verse 6 we have, and before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne were 4 beasts full of eyes, before and behind. So John was continuing the descriptions of the things that he saw. The reference to as the sea of glass. One writer spoke was probably a reference to the waters which were above the firmament, which were separated from the waters under the firmament in Genesis 1:7. That's one speculation there. Let's see. And then it speaks there at the end of verse 6 about the 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. The 4 beasts are also in the Greek, which I don't know Greek, but the writer spoke of it as referring to creatures, and not as so much as beasts, but as creatures. Because we think of the creature as the Antichrist, the beast, and we have these 4 creatures that are full of eyes. Does that give you a thought of why they would be full of eyes? Before and behind?
All seeing.
All-seeing? All-knowing? Give a reference to God, that God knows all things, no matter what we do, whether it's in the dark or in the daylight. He knows and sees all things that take place. Then in verse 7 tells us, and the first beast was like as a lion, and the second beast like as a calf, and the third beast had a face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. These give reference also back to Ezekiel and Isaiah, and the creatures here have 6 wings, and I think back in Ezekiel they just have 4, but that might be too from his vision at a different vantage point. But they can go forward, backwards, sideways, and without ever turning around. They can go all directions. And I think that's a reference to God too, that he knows all things, whether you do it behind his back or in front of him. There's no difference. God knows all that is happening and takes place. And it says in verse 8 that they rest not day and night. That always kind of gets my attention. I get tired. I like to sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
And these creatures or beasts are there day and night. You think in heaven that we'll sleep at night? Well, I don't think there's going to be any night and day in heaven, is there? Sleeping must be just a thing for us mortals here. When we get to heaven, we won't need to sleep. Any thoughts on that? And the 4 creatures say, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was, and is to come. And when those beasts gave glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever, excuse me, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. So it sounded like here like the 4 creatures, they kind of give the directions in heaven, kind of leaders of the chorus, the choir director. And it says there when they started giving glory and honor to the Lord, the 24 elders that sat on their thrones, they fall prostrate before the throne. And we don't think of people prostrating today as such in worship, but it may be totally different when we get to heaven. And it seemed like when the creatures worshiped God, then the 24 elders did also. And they says they fell prostrate before the throne, and they cast their crowns before the throne. These crowns were given to the 24 elders for things they had done. It wasn't their salvation, but it was things that they had done after their salvation. And so these crowns, the 24 elders realized and knew that they didn't earn these crowns themselves, but these crowns were given to them by the grace of God. And so they knew and realized that these crowns belonged to God. So they cast them before the throne. Verse 11, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. The one writer spoke about the Lord is worthy to receive glory and honor, but we can't give him glory and honor because we have nothing that we can really give. I know as a person, I don't have anything to give. But God, in his grace, will give to me, will give to us to receive. And God is an all giving God. And toward the end here I put down, God is eternal. He will judge all people, and they will either live with him for all eternity, or they will be separated from him for all eternity. And that's a message for you and I. Either we will live with God for all eternity, or we will be separated from God for all eternity. And that's a choice that you and I, each one, will make. All right, is there any comments, questions? As John would say, salutations.
Well, just think those four living beings that are around the throne praising God. God created them. Everything God created.
And that's in our ending verse, that God created all things for his pleasure.
So, some of what I talked about today, I don't know if you ever read one of those Power for Living, if you got, maybe last year, I don't know. But they had a place you could go to online that said gotquestions.org. And if you go on that, there are people that are studying the scriptures that will give you answers for your questions. And I see them every once in a while on YouTube. They have one there, so you can click on it, see what the question was about. A lot of the questions are of today, questions of today, the world as we live in. And one of them was about the 24 elders. So it seems to be a pretty well balanced person or persons that do this. There's a pretty good article in Power for Living. I think it's worth checking out. Gotquestions.org. Easy enough to remember. Even for me.
Anything else?
In summing up, in summing up this all the lesson, what did it try to tell us today? Does that make sense?
Well, I think as what our title says, worshiping before the throne, everyone that has given their life to Christ will worship one day before not one day, but it'll happen one day but it'll be forever and ever. We'll be worshiping before the throne of God. And in closing here of what the quarterly writer wrote, the original readers of Revelation were being persecuted for their faith, is what we know of John. When John received his vision, they were asked to pay homage to an emperor, who was probably Nero, who claimed to be divine, and to an empire that claimed to be supreme. They needed to be reminded that Christ was on his throne and that believers reign with him. Seeing what John saw would remind them that no power can thwart the purposes of the Almighty God. While the theme of Revelation 4 is God as creator. And so God has created all things, and he created all things for his own pleasure. And I think about it, as we live on this earth and we live in our mortal bodies, and the change that God will make within us, and things that he has to change in us, that we can spend eternity with him in heaven. Because these bodies here can't, as John, he was only seeing what heaven was like in the spirit. He couldn't see it in his flesh. And we cannot either. But the change that God will make in us when we transfer from this place to heaven, that we will be able to spend all eternity with him.
Well, Claire, what does it mean when they illuminate the text in that section? It says about these creatures, it says, they have not been redeemed, having never fallen. So does that mean we in our real life, if we, I mean, what does that mean? What do those four creatures, there's so much of it is symbolism.
Well,
these haven't been redeemed. So what does that mean?
well, they have never sinned.
No, so.
They're heavenly creatures.
Right, and God created them.
But we have, as mortal creatures on this earth, we have all sinned.
But angels are heavenly creatures, aren't they?
And they have
do
never
sin,
sinned.
And they do sin.
No,
I thought that we had fallen angels.
just the fallen angels have sinned.
Okay.
And the fallen angels are some of Satan's helpers. But there's many, many angels in heaven that have never sinned or never turned their back on God. And these four beasts or four creatures, they too are heavenly beings. And so they have never been redeemed because
Right,
they have
got
not
that,
sinned.
but I just wondered how that was supposed to portray to us. I haven't got this thing about angels can be heavenly and angels can be fallen. So they're still all angels? Or do we put a different type?
Well, I've read fallen angels.
We call
Yeah,
them fallen angels.
yeah.
But they were.
Or Satan's
at one
helpers.
time.
Yep. Well, so was Satan. Satan also was, I think he was the most favored angel, I think.
What's a demon?
What is a demon? It's spirit too.
I know.
Is it different than a fallen angel?
Pardon?
Is a demon different than a fallen angel?
A demon is a spirit. But what's an angel then?
They're
Does
spirit.
she have the spirit too?
They're spirits
Okay.
too. Mhm.
I gotta get this straight.
Yeah.
What was your answer to her question?
What was her question?
Is a demon the same as a fallen angel? Are they synonymous or are they different?
I think they're synonymous. But I don't know all the details of demons.
Sure.
I've never tried to study demons too much. And maybe I should more than what I ever have, but they're negative to me, and so I just don't study them. All right, come back next Sunday. We'll try something else
In the same book.
in the same book, in the next chapter.
Something new?